Hi, I'm Barry Huff. Welcome back to another podcast on the Lord's Prayer. Now we're looking at the petition, "Forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors." Debt relief was a huge issue in Jesus' day, because an extremely wealthy person would have made over 17,000 times as much money as a poor person. And the poor often had to borrow money from the wealthy at enormous interest rates in order to pay taxes to the Roman Empire. So forgive us our debts is asking God to wipe the slate clean and give us a fresh start. You may have heard people pray, "Forgive us our trespasses," which is simply a different translation of the same Greek word, often translated as debts. On the other hand, the version of the Lord's Prayer in Luke uses a different Greek word, which means sins. It may be that both Greek words are translations of the same Aramaic word, which literally means debts, but can also mean sins. A child was overheard reciting the Lord's Prayer at a church service. He prayed, "And forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespassed against us." I think he's on to something. The prayer, "Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors," is a dangerous request if we don't forgive. In fact, in Judaism, you can't ask God for forgiveness until you ask other people for forgiveness for the sins you committed against them. So on the Day of Atonement, Jews ask forgiveness from God, but on the day before, they ask forgiveness from other people. And the Lord's Prayer does the same thing. It connects God's forgiveness of us to our forgiveness of others. Forgiveness is the one thing, the only thing that's specifically required of us in the Lord's Prayer. And did you notice that just to make sure we don't miss the point, immediately after the Lord's Prayer, Jesus talks about forgiveness again. So the prayer for forgiveness leads to the action of forgiving. I love Lewis Smead's concept of forgiveness. When we genuinely forgive, we set a prisoner free, and then discover that the prisoner we set free was us. The refusal to forgive has been described as a feast, where you are the main course. So really, forgiving someone else frees us to move on in our lives. In fact, the Greek verb translated in this prayer as forgive also means to let go, to send away. So we can look at forgiveness as the release of a burden. Forgiveness frees us. As Brian Frost says, "If you forgive, often you can free a trapped yesterday and make possible a different tomorrow." A list of the sources I used when preparing these podcasts can be found on tmcyouth.com.
This podcast is produced and copyrighted by the First Church of Christ Scientists in Boston.